Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and yes, finally, I can talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been playing Cyberpunk 2077 for about the last week now, and a big thank you to CD Projekt Red for providing that review copy. Now, I'm not unaware, this has been an insane week for the channel, between the Fallout 4 reunion panel and now reviewing the biggest RPG in a long while. Thank you so much, you, the viewer, for supporting what I do here. Without you, I don't get any of these opportunities, and I hope that my transparency and my coverage makes it worth your while each and every single time. So thank you so much for believing in me, supporting me, and here's to more amazing times. But anyway, I know we're all chomping at the bit to talk about Cyberpunk, okay? But before I do that, I gotta lay out a lot of groundwork, so just be patient. Number one, if you know my content style, I flip between gameplay and my face because I don't want to bore you guys too much out here, but in this video, I can only use screenshots. My full review is coming later. This is not my official review. I have a lot more to say on the game. These are impressions after about... Oh God, my eyes hurt looking at that between full-time work and panel prep, and then also, playing the game. Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Cyberpunk 2077, but anyway, it's just screenshots here, and it is just impressions. I have a full review coming later on, alongside guides, builds, discussions, lots of Cyberpunk coverage, so be prepared. Number two, ladies and gentlemen, I have to encourage you, if you are new here, please do subscribe because I have lots more previews, reviews coming heading into 2021. We have a lot of different games coming out that we're very much excited for. And if you like RPGs, this is your home base. Okay, enough now. You want to hear about the game, and I've got you covered. This will be spoiler free. You're not going to see any gameplay. It's just going to be my face, and we're just going to be generally talking about the game and my experience after 40 hours and completing that main story. All right, so yeah, it is absolutely a awesome game. It does not come without a couple of snags. I will get into those more in depth in my final review. I'll talk about them a little bit today, but it is absolutely, in a lot of ways, living up to the hype that was put on top of it. And I breathed a sigh of relief when I first started playing the game. I was like, yes, this is good. Cyberpunk 2077's main story took me about 25 hours to finish. I've heard some weird rumors around the internet of it being like way shorter. That's not true, at least in my experience. I pretty much straight shot this story because I thought maybe they might have been fibbing about what they were doing, where they said, oh, we're making a shorter story than The Witcher 3 because a lot of people didn't finish that game. But I ended up finishing this in 25 hours. And I didn't stop for much side activity outside of a couple of gigs. I'll talk about what those are later on. But yeah, the story here completely cut out the bloat that I think really hurt The Witcher 3. And it is better because of it. But those 25 hours were fantastic. High quality writing, complex, mature storyline, interweaving lots of choices, a little bit of consequence in there. It always kind of went like this, though. There were main plot points that every single player is going to hit, but how you got there would change between all of those players. So it's sometimes subtle. It's sometimes just very direct and pushes you from mission to mission. It's not like something such as Wasteland 3, where Wasteland 3 really lets you spiderweb your choices. It doesn't seem to truly crazily be like that in this game, but I think the main story, emphasis on the main story, we'll talk about side quests after, is better for it. It tells a really compelling tale. The way they weave Johnny Silverhand into all of this is very interesting, and I just gotta say, I really liked what they did with it. Now, why is that? It's because they managed to bring V into the situation. You're a mercenary, right? And I did the nomad life path. Why would I care about any of this? But the way they effortlessly make sure V is compelled to be a part of this mission, while also getting interested in these different characters that are sort of revolving in and out of the story the whole time, it's masterfully done. I cannot say enough good things about the main storyline. I couldn't help at times but think of GTA of all things, because you'll have these main characters that come in the story. Some of them are mainstays, but some of them end up leaving after they sort of serve their purpose, and they'll call you and there'll be a whole side quest line with them that goes for hours and hours. A lot of these arcs going on for 2 to 4 hours, these long storylines with choices and consequence and different ways they can end up. The side quests in this game, however, I felt displayed more choice than what I saw in the main story. The main story showed more shades of choices, kind of like what we saw in The Witcher 3, unique scenarios that would pop up for your playthrough versus mine, and that'll be interesting to investigate as time goes on. But when it comes to the side quests, I felt the more immediate impact, the more chaotic situation of making a big choice and how people would directly react to that. I saw it more there, and especially because you're only connected to a small web of characters, I think that's why. But these side quests, man, at first I was a little worried because I was just doing gigs. So there's different types of side quests, right? These side missions are more like main story missions because they build characters that come back into the main story, and they may show up later on in your main story depending on things you do in the side missions. Whereas gigs were what I started off with. So sometimes you'll steal something, you'll hack something, you'll steal a car maybe, you'll hop in and kill someone, you'll hack something. I don't know. There's a lot of mission variety there, but it felt very much like, okay, they're just sending me on standard fun little fetch quests. And since the variety is there, it didn't get boring, but I was worrying, hey, where's that Witcher 3 Skellige quest where I threw a baby into the oven? I was like, what is going on here, right? Eventually, when you get to the character storylines and those side missions there that crop up around the world, the game really starts to show its true colors, and it is phenomenal. But it does take a little bit to, sort of lead you into that. Now, if you don't know me, I play RPGs all the time. Like, I'm always playing one, whether it's JRPG, Western RPG, I don't know. I'm always playing RPGs, it seems. And this game's progression systems kind of overwhelmed me. It is a lot to take in when you first start up. So allow me to try to explain it. It'll make more sense if I had gameplay, but I already explained the scenario I'm in right now, so sadly I cannot show you, but try to just imagine this. So you have your character level, you have street cred. Character level is, you get your XP from killing enemies, where street cred, think of it as just what determines how you get your missions. So as your street cred goes up, you unlock more gigs that you can do around the open world. So just think of it as unlocking missions, whereas your level is tied to your attributes, like your cool stat, which is used for stealth, or your engineering, your intelligence, your reflexes, and so on and so forth. So you have attribute points that are spent on all of those different types of skills there, and they'll increase respective stats, like say cool, as I mentioned, is for stealth. But inside, we're going to keep going on with cool because that's the cool thing to do. Inside cool is going to be a bunch of perk trees for stealth, for cold-blooded, or inside intelligence, you're going to find breach protocol, you're going to find hacking. There's so many perk trees within these actual skills themselves, it starts to get really crazy, and these perks will help determine your build. Now, there's also skills. So think of like Skyrim. In Skyrim, you're going to have like your one-handed sword. You're going to swing it around. You're going to use it a lot. And it's going to increase that skill more and more. Suddenly you have 43, one-handed skill. And you become more proficient in that. In Cyberpunk 2077, there are 20 tiers of skills. And so what happens is you're rewarded for using different things, and you'll become more proficient with them. Like your aim down sights time will become better, but then you start using perks, and that reinforces what you're doing, so you can be like a god with a handgun if you're like 20 handgun on top of all the perks in the handgun tree. Like, you can go really in depth with the character customization here, and that doesn't even scratch the surface on cyberware. So not only are you changing all these different stats and perks and really thinking that through, but then you're also augmenting your body to give yourself double jumps, to punch harder, to scan enemies, to have more carry weight. There's so much there. There's so much customization. That's not even including all the weapons you can have, the types of weapons you can have. It is really overwhelming at first, not because the game doesn't pace it out properly. It's just a lot of systems. It is very much a hardcore RPG. That's something that people should be aware of. This game's sort of been marketed as big action adventure open world game, and yes, it is that, but it also very much is a role-playing game. So just relax in knowing that they didn't really dumb too many things down. The one thing I think they did sort of disappointingly dumbed down is sometimes the skill checks really weren't respected. Remember when Fallout 4 came out and people were like, oh, there's no skill checks here, or when there is skill checks here, they don't really respect them. Like, I had times where I was able to do an engineering skill check. I made my character all about intelligence, engineering, all that stuff. And so I could do that at one point. And I actually one time also had a chance to do a cool skill check, and I passed it to get a discount, and the guy told me to screw off. And I didn't get my discount even though I passed the skill check. And I'm like, why? That pops up in some conversations, and it's really, really annoying to me because it's like subtle things that they tell you to go away with. But some of the major things they just let you go crazy with. But sometimes they present like, oh, there will be another branch here that you could take if you're actually high enough to have that skill and pass that skill check. And when you do in the conversation, they're like, no, here's why we can't do that. It's like, just don't put it there. It's torture for me. Let's talk about the open world as well. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Lots of diverse districts. The city itself, as someone who is frequently in New York City, I gotta say, seeing alleyways and tons of people, the crowd density is insane in this game. On PC, you can change how many people in the crowd there are, low, medium, high. I kept it on high. Really brought the city to a new level. Especially, I was seeing not as many repeating NPCs as I saw in some rumors, but I don't deny that probably is a thing, because when my crowd density is high, I'm just kind of blown by everybody. But it feels like a city, and it takes so much inspiration from so many different walks of life. And so you'll see like Japantown, and as a weeb, that is incredible. Like, I loved everything about it. You know, the neon lights, the color of the streets, the big gargantuan buildings that are made of glass. It's just so much style there, and you just want to be in there. There was the concern that the game wouldn't be as big as The Witcher 3, and that's just like CD Projekt Red had also told us. They said it's not going to be like The Witcher 3 where it's long, but it's more going to be dense, and that is true here. This is a dense city. You're going to be weaving through alleyways to find quests, and you're going to be running into pockets of enemies in there, and there's going to be different little outposts set up as well. And that doesn't even account for the Badlands outside of the city, which I know a lot of you here are Fallout fans, and I'm happy to report it is exactly as I wished it was. The Badlands are awesome. I almost like it more than Night City, because it's such a drastic shift from what the game is. You know, it's loud in the city. There's people everywhere. You know, it's got tons of lights and tons of life there. And then you go to the Badlands, and it's abandoned, and you're finding scrap out there, and it's beautiful in its own weird way. And so I really appreciated that diversity out there, just being able to go from one place to the other, back and forth, and having quests in both areas in mass. That was awesome. Now, how about how the game plays? One of the things with RPGs is it always feels like there is a corner cut. That's one of my favorite things about Cyberpunk 2077. It didn't feel like any corners were cut here. It was AAA across all levels. Like, the gunplay felt solid. The blade play, if that's even a term, felt solid. And that doesn't even account for the multiple types of guns that you have. So you have power guns, which can ricochet bullets. You have tech guns, which are, oh my God, awesome. Shooting enemies through walls and capping them, and they have no idea what just happened to them. Amazing. Stealth gameplay, stealth takedowns. There is so much diversity in its gameplay, and it all feels pretty good. I will say some of the movement as I used a controller didn't feel amazing to me personally, but it wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. And I did note that as I used certain weapon types and my character's skill went up with them and they became more proficient with that, it really rewarded me where, like I said, that ADS time, the reload time, they started to get better. And so using a pistol felt really good for my character because I was really grinding away at that. So I appreciated that an absolute ton, that the game played well. You see, I feel like when it comes to the stories, there's enough shades where people might replay it for the story. I'm sure that people will, but the gameplay here is so deep, and there's so many routes to go between the progression systems and how you play the game and how you mod out your weapon. It is crazy, man. It is going to be a game that a lot of people just replay just to create different builds and play the game in unique ways. And that's a tip of the cap to the mission designers, to the level designers, to allow these big areas that you can approach in so many different ways and accomplish tasks in different ways, whether it's breaking through doors with strength or using your engineering ability to get through, using almost like Watch Dogs-esque mechanics where you're surfing through cameras. It is crazy. There is so much variety here, and I really, really appreciate it. Now, lastly, I want to talk about driving. Driving felt kind of loose. Wasn't a huge fan of it. Like, every car kind of spins out on the back end whenever you're trying to make a turn. Maybe I'm just going too fast. I don't know. But it doesn't feel that tight. And every single car I drove has done that. Like, it's just the back tires like every single time whenever I want to make a turn. And that's without like hand braking. It's just using the left analog stick and around it goes. Now let's talk a little bit about optimization. I have a 5-year-old PC with a 980 Ti, and I gotta say, this game ran just fine on high settings for me. Usually in 60 FPS, but at times it did go down to the 40s and 50s. But once again, my PC is very old. I have not upgraded a part in there. I have like i7 quad core, so it's not a super powerful PC nowadays. There is much more out there, but the fact that it could run it on high, I think, is a testament to how well they optimized this game. But everyone's experience is different on PC, and so that is something that I would say wait for it to be fully solidified, because also my experience, and they did patch a lot of this, was kind of buggy. A lot of visual bugs. Quest bugs were non-existent, and I think that's very important to point out because it was allowing me to go from area to area, no problem. There was nothing ever really stopping me, but you were noticing like little hiccups all over the place, like people randomly appearing, they're T-posing. You'd notice things like guns floating in the air. That got patched out. So there were really weird visual bugs, and you could absolutely 100,000% see why they wanted to delay this game, especially early on in the review period. But the good news is that throughout that review period, it got patched out. A lot of my complaints for the bugs were pretty much wiped away. And so that's not even including the day one patch for Cyberpunk 2077, which is coming obviously the day of its release, that we did not experience during the review period. But that pretty much generally covers the major points I wanted to talk about here in this video. Like I said, in my final review, I'll be able to go more in depth. I'll be able to show you gameplay examples so you can connect some of the dots. But the good news here is that after 40 hours, I really, really enjoyed my time in Night City. I'm still continuing to play it. I'm aiming to, by the time my review goes live, have around 60 hours in the game, so I can really have seen it pretty closely, because like I said, I finished that main quest at 25 hours, so I've had about 15 hours of just pure side content. And by the way, the map, holy God almighty, like it is packed with content. It's disgusting, and that is something that I just need to show you guys visually at some point in time. It is insane. So a lot of stuff, I'm sorry, I do have to wait for my full review. That'll be up later on. Do keep a lookout for it. Please do subscribe if you are looking forward to that, as well as more Cyberpunk 2077 content. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, fire away down below. Do you have any questions? Because a lot of this stuff I'm going to be going more in depth on in the review, but is there something I left hanging here? Because I want to take note of that and make sure I cover it in my final review. That's why I did impressions. Normally I don't, but number one, I know people are really itching to hear about this game. But number two is I think it's very important that I connect with all of you, see what you're valuing, what I missed, maybe I didn't cover fully, or I kind of skipped over. I don't know. I just want to make sure that you're all covered, so when you're making this purchasing decision, it's as informed as possible, because I know some people are very hyped for this game, but some people are also very much like, I don't trust this game right now. And I totally understand and respect that, because the game got delayed a lot, and I know some of the hype just got put out the room. So I totally get that. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, leave it in your hands. Let me know if there's anything that I can do for you. Fire away in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. Big thank you to all the patrons, all the members. You guys have been killing it lately. And thank you just to everyone who watches this channel. Thank you so much. Appreciate each and every single one of you. And I'll talk with you soon. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.